Just about 24 hours away from NFL Week 12 between the Dolphins and Patriots, and we're finally getting our debts out of the way. We crossed 500 followers on Instagram, and we owed a Dolphins Today IG mailbag, and that is exactly what is on tap for today here at the channel. And we'll jump right into it. Tony, 19 Ohio, with our first question. Should Jordan Poyer be given the treatment Mostert had gotten, reduced snaps to give young talent a chance to develop live in-game reps? If so, who should be put into the safety rotation? Well, it's interesting you mentioned this because Jordan Poyer has been a disaster this season. They signed him to replace Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Jones, and both of those two safeties have had better seasons elsewhere outside of Miami, while Poyer has been one of the worst-rated safeties in all of football. He has not been able to effectively defend the pass. He hasn't done much in the run game, and many people, including myself, have been curious to see if he could get benched. Well, the issue with that question you asked is that there's really no young talent to give kind of minutes and reps over Jordan Poyer. You saw the depth chart. Marcus May has been in rotation as the third safety, and he has been better in coverage than Jordan Poyer, but Marcus May has been one of the worst tackling safeties in all of football and has had a couple plays to cost the Dolphins football games. You think about that Ray Davis 75-yard touchdown catch against the Bills. Marcus May with a horrific effort on that play to make a tackle. The week prior against Kyler Murray late in that game, 3rd and 4, QB power to the right, he has a chance to hit Murray at the line of scrimmage and force a field goal attempt to give the offense a chance with a minute to go. He doesn't. He picks up the first down, and then they wince away the game and kick a field goal as time expires. So there's really no one to give snaps to over Jordan Poyer. Maybe if Patrick McMorris is elevated off IR, the 6th-round rookie out of California, maybe they want to give him some looks. But if it's between Elijah Campbell and Marcus May, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to stick with Jordan Poyer. We mentioned we crossed 500 followers on Instagram, and it's why we're doing this mailbag. Well, make sure you go give us a follow over there because we are posting daily content on our page at Dolphins Today. IG is the handle. Coverage outside of YouTube channel, 365, short form content, normal post. Make sure you go follow us over there. All right, next question coming in from VTech-K24. Do you see Anthony Weaver returning as the Dolphins DC next season or moving on to be a potential head coach for another team? Well, VTech, it's actually a well-timed question because NFL insider Tom Pelissero put out this week a list of coordinators that are kind of gaining some buzz in a potential head coach cycle, and Anthony Weaver was on the list. With that being said, though, I would not fear if I were you at home or a Dolphins fan. Anthony Weaver, I think, is a great leader, and he's been solid as a defensive coordinator for Miami this season, but it's just a little too early for him to become a head coach. Now, if he has another strong season as Dolphins defensive coordinator next year, I think after 2 years of being a DC, all of the assistant head coach work he had in Baltimore, he could become a head coach. I expect Anthony Weaver to be back coaching this Dolphins defense next season, which is a good thing because I think he's been good so far this season, and I like the way he coaches and leads this defensive group because they've been a tougher group than it was last season, and we know how soft they actually were. Oh, boss man coming in here. James T. Yoder with a question. Should the Dolphins tank for defensive lineman Mason Graham out of Michigan? James's favorite team here. And I'll tell you what. Should the Dolphins tank? No, absolutely not. You're 4-6. You play the Patriots tomorrow. Chance to get to 5-6. I know the chances are slim, but I think the Dolphins really could go on a run here to make the postseason at 9 or 10 wins, especially if they're able to get some wins against the Packers, Texans, or 49ers. But in terms of drafting Mason Graham, I think this is something I would be all in for if the Dolphins had the chance to take Graham out of Michigan, because I think he's the best interior defensive lineman in this draft class. He has been productive all 3 years he was a Wolverine, part of that national championship team a year ago as well, and we know that the Dolphins defensive line needs someone like Mason Graham. Zach Sealer's under contract. He's a stud on the interior, but they need to find a long-term solution after Christian Wilkins left this past free agency. Calais Campbell has been a godsend on a 1-year deal for this Dolphins defense, but it is very unclear if he will return next season. There's a high chance he retires. There's a chance maybe he signs with a different contender if he doesn't feel like like Miami's able to compete for a championship next season due to Campbell being 38 and only wanting to play for a team that could win a title. So if the Dolphins are picking in the top 12, top 15, and Mason Graham falls to them, I would be all in on making him a Miami Dolphin. The problem is your boy might be too good and he goes inside the top 10, and I don't think the Dolphins end up picking there when things are in April. But it does beg the question, what position will the Dolphins target in the NFL draft? They have a first-round pick. They have a second-round pick. What position will they target in the first round? If I had the power rank them, I'd probably go offensive line, safety, corner, and then defensive line. Maybe not in that specific order, but those are the top four in my opinion. All right, let's move over to Amazing Jonathan. Do the Dolphins sign a free agent offensive lineman? I assume you're talking right now and not in free agency in the end of this year, back in March, because they will obviously sign a free agent then. But right now, it doesn't seem like they will. I speculated they should probably go and sign an offensive lineman, especially after Austin Jackson was placed on IR and out for the end or for the rest of the season. But they've elevated Jackson Carman from the practice squad for the past 2 weeks to replace Austin Jackson. And with Isaiah Wynn returning to this football team relatively soon, by the time we're filming this, I don't know if he's been activated before week 12 against New England. He has a 21-day practice window. It's already been about 7-8 days. So we'll see when he gets activated, but it feels like that's going to be their only addition because we know Wynn can play offensive tackle. He did it for New England. He can play on the interior. He's a Swiss Army knife, and I would just expect Miami and Chris Grier to say, hey, we're getting Isaiah Wynn back. We'll make him our depth kind of swing guy to be the backup right tackle for Kendall Lamb, backup left guard for Robert Jones. That's how I anticipate this offensive line depth chart kind of unfolding down the stretch of the season. The only guy being added to this group should be Isaiah Wynn when he gets activated off the PUP list for good. Before we get to some more questions, I got to make sure you are hooked up with Mando, the #1 whole body deodorant and the only brand I trust to make sure I'm smelling nicey on a daily basis. It's whole body deodorant, so it's safe to use anywhere on your body. Pits, balls, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, feet, it doesn't matter. The Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. I got a couple products in studio today because I always carry Mando with me to make sure I'm smelling good. This one is one that I am going to use when I go to Florida in a couple days. Little mini body wash, bourbon leather, travel size. You also got the invisible spray as well, bourbon leather. Make sure you're smelling nice. I like the bourbon leather. I like the Mount Fuji. They got so many different scents that just make me feel confident when I'm out in public because I know I'm always smelling good. And I want to make sure you are as well. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and our sponsor, Mando. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, let's move over here to another question. Drayton the first. Why do you think there's been almost no deep air game this year? Well, it's a very simple answer here, Drayton, and you've seen this across the league. The defenses are playing much more too high safety looks, and they're doing it at a more frequent rate against the Miami Dolphins than any other team. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen sees that same type of coverage, but when you have the speed that Miami possesses of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the outside, Devon Achane at the backfield, and you look over the past 2 seasons with McDaniel as the play caller, where the Dolphins had a top 5 offense, and last year they were #1 in chunk plays, yardages. Tua led the league in passing. You are just seeing teams get petrified lining up against Miami, knowing that they have to keep 2 safeties 15, 20 yards downfield pre-snap so they don't get burned by Tyreek and Jalen on the perimeter, which is what is the reason you have seen the Dolphins offense take a different approach this year. They've included more running attempts inside the tackles. They've utilized the quick passing game with Jonnu Smith over the middle of the field as tight end more. Quick dump offs to Devon Achane. Tua Tagovailoa knows that the defenses are not allowing them to go deep passing 20-plus yard plays consistently like it's been over the past 2 seasons. And because of that, Tua has been getting the ball out of his hands quicker than ever. He's been lightning fast in terms of reading defenses. As soon as he drops back, sees the 2 high safeties, knows that it's a zone coverage, he's like, all right, then I'm just going to drop it down 5 yards to Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, let them do their work, and they have been doing that work. You see the numbers. Yes, he's only played in 5 full games this season, 5.5 if you include that Bills game, but he's completing 73.4% of his passes. He had that bad 3-interception game against Buffalo in week 2, but he's been uber efficient this year, and I like this. It's actually more sustainable offense when you talk about getting later in the season and in a playoff type atmosphere. So I'm not complaining. Sure, the chunk plays are fun, but this offense has been moving pretty well right now. We are playing the Patriots tomorrow, second time of the season, and we got a sub battle, and we're doing it specifically on our Saturday video. We're going to do a sub battle live tomorrow as well, as we are live for every Dolphins game, but make sure you hit that sub button as we take down the Patriots on Saturday to get the good vibes for Sunday. All right, let's move over to Robert Austin here. Do the Dolphins fire Chris Grier at the end of the season before the draft? Well, if they fire Chris Grier, it would be way before the draft. It would be before free agency as well, because you're not going to let Grier sign free agents and then take him out after that. But here's the thing. As much as I have been open about wanting Chris Grier to be fired, I made a video about it. I made a short about it. And I think there are some things that Chris Grier has done extremely wrong. Not addressing offensive line, making the decisions at safety that he did, and letting Deshaun Elliott and Brandon Jones leave and sign Jordan Poyer. But he's had some good hits as well. Jonnu Smith, Aaron Brewer. You've seen him make good picks in the draft like, I'm spacing. I just don't know what I was going to say. I just completely messed. I don't know what happened. I just completely whiffed here. Chris Grier's laughing at me. But either way, Stephen Ross and Grier have a really good relationship. So I do not anticipate Grier to be canned. And when you think about where this team is going, if they struggled and were picking top 10 in the draft and they went 3-14 this year, yes, I could see Chris Grier being fired. But the fact that this roster is starting to put together a little bit, stack some wins, if they finish 8-9 or better, I think Grier is going to get at least one more season to see this build through with Tyreek, Jalen Ramsey, and Tua Tagovailoa. So I do not anticipate Chris Grier being fired, even though I know some people do want him to be canned. Alex with a question. Do you see the Dolphins re-signing or in any way retaining Jevon Holland long term? Holland is the number 1 free agent this upcoming offseason for the Miami Dolphins, and he could arguably be the number 1 free agent, period. It'd probably between him, T. Higgins, and Trey Smith from Kansas City. Holland has had a little bit of an interesting year. He's had some big-time plays. One big one that comes to mind, Jaguars stripping Travis Etienne at the 1-yard line, which saved that game for Miami and ultimately saved the season because they could be 3-7 right now instead of 4-6. The question is, does Miami have the cap space to sign Jevon Holland long term? Well, it's anticipated that Miami will have anywhere between $25 and $40 million in cap space after contract restructures, extensions, and some other minuscule moves as well. Because right now it's only $4 million projected cap space, but they'll likely have anywhere between 25 and 40. And Jevon Holland is going to get a massive payday. He's probably going to be at the top 3, top 5 in terms of safeties that get paid. The projection that me and some people came up with at Chat Sports here is a 4-year, $74 million contract that gets him $18.5 million average per season over the next 4 years. That would make him the 3rd highest safety in the entire NFL behind Antoine Winfield and Derwin James. I think that's a fair offer, especially since Jevon Holland has dealt with injuries over the past 2 seasons. Would they be able to pay him that is the question. Do they want to pay him that? But if you don't pay Jevon Holland that, well, you're going to have to replace your entire safety room, because you're going to have to replace Holland, you're going to have to replace Jordan Poyer, and that becomes difficult. So I would anticipate Miami trying to retain Jevon Holland. Maybe they franchise tag him and then try to work on an extension, but just know it is going to be a hefty price for the safety, former 2nd-round pick. But you predict it for me. What say you? Will the Dolphins keep Jevon Holland around long term? Type Y for yes or type N for no. If you flash it back to before the season started, I said that I would like to get Jevon Holland extended before the year started. Didn't happen, so we'll ultimately see how it plays out back in March. All right, let's get over to Jose Soto, I believe the last question on today's show. How do you feel about our defense and our offensive line for the past 2 games? Should we re-sign Calais Campbell? Quickly answer the defense and offensive line. Defense has played much better over the past 2 weeks. Offensive line has struggled in the run game, but they've been great in the pass blocking. They've kept Tua upright against the Rams and the Raiders. But let's talk about Calais Campbell more here to answer this question, because we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. I don't think Calais Campbell re-signs with Miami. I would love for him to be back, but he's 38 years old. He's only signing 1-year contracts, and he was asked about his long-term future, and he answered very honestly, saying, I don't think I'm going to think about my future with the Dolphins or in the NFL until after the season concludes. So I don't think he knows what he's going to do in terms of playing football next season. Would I love for him to be back on a 1-year deal? Yes, he's been productive as hell, and he's been active for every single game Miami has played this season. I'd love to take him back, and he would be cheap on a 1-year vet min contract. But I actually think it would be better for Miami to let him go. Either he retires or he signs with a different team and start to invest in a younger defensive lineman that can be here long term next to Zach Sealer. Well, whether it's a free agent that you try to develop on a 2-3 year contract, or someone like Mason Graham you drafted in the first round or in the second round. There are going to be some defensive linemen out there. There's a guy from Texas A&M. I'm spacing on his name. That's pretty solid. But either way, there is going to be some guys out there for the Dolphins to potentially replace Campbell with, and I think they should probably try to do that. All right, that will do it. Like I said off the top, make sure you follow us on Instagram. Maybe we do another Dolphins Today Instagram mailbag in the future. And if you want to be a part of that, well, you got to be following us over at Dolphins Today IG. See you tomorrow for Dolphins Patriots Week 12 Watch Party.